start the second class in the Lost Princess. If it wasn't being recorded, I'd belt out a song, because that usually gets people's attention, wakes them up a little bit. It's a good way to get people's attention in a non-attacking way. Just sing a song. So, okay, so last time, on the first class of the Lost Princess, we spent about half the class talking about stories in general, the power of stories, and how Rabbi Nachman said to his followers at a certain point, he said, I've been teaching you so much. Open the window?
You were talking about the power of stories.
Right, the power of stories. And how Rabbi Nachman said to his followers, he said, I've been, teaching you so much. And they were, he was giving over to them the deepest mystical, powerful teachings. And he said at a certain point, but I can see that you're just not getting it. It's not working like I anticipated. I don't see you transforming and running back to the power of your own neshama, to the power of your own soul, and running back to God in the way that I want to see you as my students doing. So I'm just going to have to tell you a story. Once there was a king, and so he started telling stories. This was the first story that he told. And so you can see for here that this telling of stories for Rabbi Nachman was not like a peripheral thing or an interesting thing to kind of just like keep people engaged. For him, telling stories was the ideal and most powerful way to kind of laser beam what it was that he was trying to give over into the hearts of his followers. And that's what a story does, It's like with teachings, with Torah teachings, you sometimes ask yourself, am I connecting to this? Am I not? Do I agree with this? Do I not agree with this? Are there other opinions? It's kind of, but with a story, it just story just transcends and supersedes, kind of like trumps all of those analytical voices in the head. It's a story. It kind of just brings you there, right? It brings you to wherever the story is going to bring you. So, yeah.
What I heard first is that he had been telling a story, but then he saw that it was not penetrating, so he wanted to say another story.
Hafuch, no. He started telling. He was teaching his teachings, and then he stopped and said, "The teachings are not quite working. I'm just going to have to tell you a story." So this is the first story that he told, called The Lost Princess. And for those who weren't here, just in a nutshell, he says, he opens up by saying, on the way, when I was just traveling, I told this story, and there wasn't one person who heard the story that didn't have a hirhor tshuva, that didn't have a stirring to return to God. And this is the story. There was once one king. This is the story of one king who had 6 sons and 1 daughter. And he loved the daughter so much, and he spent an exceptional amount of time with the daughter, specifically with her. And then one night, he got upset at her. He got beroges. He got angry at her, and inadvertently, the words flew out of his mouth, "May the no good take you away." That night, she went to her room, and in the morning, she was gone. And the king searched for her here and there, and he was heartbroken. He was grieved that she was gone. She was his pride and joy, his glory, his love, and she was gone. He was grieved, heartbroken. He searched for her, and then the second in command, the Sheni LaMelech, or the Sheni LaMalchut, the viceroy, he got the viceroy.
Yes.
The Sheni LaMalchut, it's called, the second in command to the king, saw how disturbed the king was, and got up and said, "Give me a horse, money, and a helper. I'm going to find her for you." And he sets out searching for her. So we spent a lot of time on this introduction, but just one word of review, and then we're going to pick up where we left off. is that we said, who's the king? Is the king of all kings. Right? The king of all kings, the Melech Melchei Melechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God himself. And who's the daughter? We talked about that she's the manifestation of Malchut, of Malchus in the world, which we could loosely describe as the revelation of God's oneness in this world, the Shekhinah. Exactly, the Shekhinah, B'diuk. The revelation of Hashem's kingdom, the revelation of Hashem in this world, of God's Or Ein Sof, as it trickles through the worlds and through the different, is refracted through all kinds of, through the zodiac signs, through the celestial, beings, through all the different aspects of creation, in the spiritual realms, in the physical realms. God's, unified, infinite light is kind of like being refracted and reflected and trickling down into this world. So on the one hand, we talked about this last time, on the one hand, Malchut, the seventh, the daughter, the one that's farthest from him in a sense, is the lowest, because it's the farthest from God, and so it feels sometimes like it's the least holy. But on the other hand, like the story tells us, the king loves her the most. He's the closest with her, because the whole point of the creation of the world is the revelation of godliness in the lowest place. Right?
What was he trying to refer to?
We talked about it last time, but just in a word, the anger is generally understood as the necessary concealment that God has to build into the world. He has to build into the world a necessary concealment in order that we should be able to have relationship with him, in order so that we should be able to have free choice and a separate existence. And so just like a child feels that when a parent gets upset, right, and says, I can't believe you ran into the road, and maybe even gives a pat on the hand, you ran into the road, right? And the child feels the parent's anger. But really it's only coming from love, and the parent has to conceal the love in anger in order for the sake of the child. That's also that all of the concealment that we experience in the world, which is this aspect that the seventh, the daughter, the seventh child, she gets lost. She's gone. She's hidden. We have no idea where she is. We don't know where the revelation of that godliness, of that pure, amazing, delicious love of God is. We don't experience that as we're walking through the world, walking through the day. Where is that? The reason God created the world. So it feels like God's anger, but really it's all so that we could ultimately have the closest relationship with him. There's a lot more to say about that.
The anger is the frustration, kind of say, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Shekhinah is so concealed. Is that what it is?
Not exactly, because the anger preceded, he got angry and then she was lost. So I don't want to get into it so much, and because we did get into it last time, but it's the perceived anger of God that's manifest in the concealment of his presence in this world. That's what I'll leave it as that. There's a lot written about it, but I want to continue where we left off last time. So, so the second command, the Sheni L'Melch, he gets up, he's like, I'm going to find her. So he gets up, he gets up and he starts searching for her in deserts and in fields and in forests. And he was searching for a very long time. So he's looking for her for a very long time, right? For many years, in the forests, in the deserts, in the fields. And suddenly he sees a little path off to the side. And he thought to himself, I've been looking so long in the wilderness, in the forest, in the fields, and I haven't been able to find her. I'm going to go on this path. Maybe I'll come to a civilized place. And then he went again for a long time. So, first of all, we could see from here that the search takes a long time. It takes many years, right? We're going to see exactly, really how long he is on his search through this story. This is all more than one story. Through the story, how it takes him so many years. It takes him a lifetime.
What search is the viceroy?
This is the viceroy, yes, the Sheni the Malchut, the Sheni the viceroy. So he's searching for a very long time. And first he's searching in the Midbar, in the deserts, in the fields, right? And so you could imagine he's like kind of weed whacking his way through, making a path where nobody had walked before. He's searching. He's mamish he's on this search, and from here, one thing that I get from this is that on the search for the Shekhinah, on the search for the revelation of godliness in the world, we need to go into the Midbar. We need to go into the places, the uncharted territory sometimes, and even look at our own consciousness sometimes as uncharted territory. What I mean by that is, like, sometimes we're so used to the way that we think, and we're so used to the habits that we're in, that it seems like, oh, this is normal, this is life. But we have to, but what I have to do is I have to kind of look at the way I'm thinking and say, I have to sometimes uproot trees. Like Rabbi Nachman said, I have to uproot trees that are growing for 1,000 years. Things, kind of assumptions that I got from my parents or my grandparents or friends that are imprinted in me, and say, is this, is this preventing me from connecting to God? And kind of weed whack our way through those midbars. Anyway, suddenly he sees a shvil me'atzad. He sees this little path off to the side. So from here we can see that if a person really wants it, is really searching for godliness, then Hashem illuminates for them their own specific shvil, their own specific path. You know how Chazal, it says in the writings of our sages, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, right? Have you heard of this? The world was created for me. Mm-hmm. So Rabbi Nachman has a beautiful Torah where he says, Bishvili, which means for me, also has the word in it, shvil, which means a path. For Bishvili, Lashvil Sheli Nivra Ha'olam, the whole world was created for my specific path. And so this shvil me'atzad is sometimes it's the off the beaten road path that I have to take, that's uniquely my own. I have to find my own unique way within Torah, within the service of Hashem. And sometimes the off the beaten road, people are looking and say, why are you going that way? Like, that's not what everybody else is doing. That's not how everybody else is davening. That's not how everybody else is learning. That's not how everybody else is dressing, whatever it is. Right? It's like, and they might look at you weird, and family might look at you and say, what are you doing? But this is the shvil me'atzad. This is what Hashem is illuminating for you, is your specific path. And it's only in discovering your own unique, specific path that you can really find the Bat Melech, you can really find the princess, the Malchut, the power of your own neshama, which is totally unique. It's your own shvil. It's your own path off to the side, right?
It's very beautiful. You don't have to compare yourself to
right.
anybody.
Exactly. 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 It's written right here. B'diuk what you're saying. He says in the commentary, it says, "Im yechazak mo'od lo listakel al shum birya ba'olam." A person has to be very, very strong-minded to not look at anybody else, to not look at what anybody else is doing in the world. But lo yitbabel me'em klal, so that we won't be confused by other people and what they think, and the mabul, the kind of confusion of other people's opinions and popular opinions, and even within the Torah world sometimes. Then we'll be able to really find her. Because finding the princess, finding the revelation of godliness in the world, the revelation of godliness within me, is so unique. It's so unique to me that I can hardly even explain it to you. Right? If I have a moment of, like, I'm walking down the street and I have some sort of experience where I have this little flicker, this little wave or wink from God, and then I'm filled up with, I'm like totally enthused. I'm like that was like a revelation of Hashem in my life just now. It was crazy, And then I go and I try to tell you about it. Does it work to tell you? Not really, right? You don't feel, I can't tell it to you in a way that you experience it, because it was my unique experience. And Rabbi Nachman says even more, that not only could I not explain my experience of godliness, of the revelation of Hashem, of the lost princess, to somebody else, but I can't even explain it to myself the day after. it's so unique, right? So not only is my experience, my connection to Hashem have to be so unique and so intimate to me, but it's also so unique and intimate to me every day, every moment, every hour, which is sometimes why we get confused, because we're like, where is godliness? And did I ever really experience anything anyway, especially for Baalei Tshuva? Sometimes we have these moments of, people that didn't grow up with the Torah, and people that did grow up with the Torah, they have moments of revelation, and Hashem is real, and Hashgacha Pratis, and everything is biduk from God. And then, choop, it's gone, right? I'm searching, and I'm in the desert on a horse with no name. Right? I'm going through the desert, searching, I'm groping, I'm wondering, did I ever really feel anything in the first place? Because I can't even describe my feeling of godliness then. I was like, I know I was flying on something. I know I discovered something 5 years ago or a year ago or yesterday. I definitely experienced something, but what was it? I don't even know. I can't, it's slipping through my fingers when I try to, because it has to be new, it has to be unique, it has to be the Shvil Me'atzad, and every person has to go on that search, to be constantly on that search for the lost princess, for the real connection to Hashem. So he takes the Shvil Me'atzad. Right. And you see also many great people. Like many of the greatest people, they were on such a Shvil Me'atzad, on such a, their own unique path, that they were excommunicated. Like, take the Ramchal, right? Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, and then he was from Italy, and then he lived in Israel, and he was excommunicated from the mainstream community, the Ramchal. Because of his writings and because of his teachings. He was on such a unique path from the mainstream community that people thought he was totally heretical even. And now his writings are considered mainstream, right? Derech Hashem and Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim is like learned in all of the yeshivot. And he writes on Kabbalah and people from, everybody goes and visits his gravesite in Tiberia by Rabbi Akiva. But in his lifetime, he was excommunicated. He was considered to be, right? So it's like we have to be so strong in also the illumination of what Hashem wants for me, that we don't think about what other people are saying, or what other people might try to make us doubt that, defy their own path. So that's the Shvil Me'atzad. So he's like, okay, zoop, he takes a turn onto this path off to the side. He walks a long time on that path, but again, it's not so simple. It's not like he bumps into her and that's the end of the story. He walks for a long time on that path. And then he sees this huge fortress, Shekorin Shloss. It's called in Yiddish a Schloss, which means like locked in, like a fortified palace or fortress. And many Chayalim, soldiers were surrounding, and guards were surrounding the palace. And this was like a very impressive, an extremely impressive fortress. If you could think like Buckingham Palace or something in England that I've never been to, where people just go just to watch the changing of the guards, right? It's so perfect and with such precision and such, right? So everything is so put together, so planned and practiced that the Seder, the organizational aspect of it is so beautiful. He says it was so beautiful. It was like very impressive, and he was worried that the soldiers wouldn't let him come in. But he thought about it. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. And he left his horse and he went to the palace. So he left his horse. So what does the horse represent? Many hold that the horse represents in this story his body, right? We said that the Sheni L'Malchut, the second in command, is every one of Am Yisrael. And he leaves his horse behind. And
he represents what? Am Yisrael?
Am Yisrael.
I'm sorry, I don't have the word.
That's okay. I'm also don't speak, so sometimes I don't speak as clearly as I should.
The horse represents nothing.
So the horse represents his body.
His body?
He represents each and every one of us on that search for the princess. and the horse represents his body. So when he leaves his horse behind, he doesn't have to leave his, we don't have to, God wants us to enjoy food and beautiful clothing and nice things, right? But at the same time, in order to really search for the princess and to find her, we have to detach a little bit, right? Sometimes we have to, give up bodily or physical pleasures in order to be on that. Maybe you're going to make less money, you're going to live in a smaller house or whatever it is, to live in Eretz Yisrael. In order to search for the princess, sometimes you have to detach a little bit from the physical, from our physicality and the physical comforts. So he leaves the horse behind, and he goes in but they let him go in. It was the strangest thing. They kind of just moved aside. These guards moved aside, and he walks in, and nobody tries to stop him at all. And he walked from room to room. Nobody asked him anything. He's like this dirty, dusty schlepper. He's been, weed whacking in the deserts and the fields, and he's just walking in this huge palace. Nobody says anything to him. He's just walking from room to room. And he comes to this big, impressive hall. And there was a king, another king, sitting there with his crown in all his glory. And people were playing music in front of him. And it was so beautiful. It was just impressive, amazing. And nobody asked him anything. So it's strange, right? Why did they let him get away with just walking around freely and walking into the throne room of the king? So we'll see why in a little bit. Why he wasn't a threat. Why he wasn't a threat to them. We'll see. And he saw. What?
What do you mean, why they let him in?
Nobody says, excuse me, could I see your Teudas Zehut? Who are you? What are you doing here? Were you invited? Are you the nephew of the king that somehow you're supposed to be here? You're dirty, you're filthy, and nobody's asking him anything. He's just... Question. He was almost invisible with the invisibility cloak. He, right. He didn't seem to cause, to awaken any concern or any attention at all. So nobody asked him. And he saw there many foods and delicacies. And he stood, he ate, he took food. He was just totally free to do whatever. He took food, he ate. Then he went and he laid down in a corner. Bezavit. He lay down in a corner just to see what was going to happen. He's like, what's going on here? This is amazing. I'm going to lie down in the corner and watch. And he saw that the king suddenly, he commands, bring the queen. Right? Bring the queen.
And there was the last person.
And they went. And they went to bring the queen. And there was a big noise and great joy. And suddenly the band, the symphony strikes up, and it's this epic symphonic play of music. Was they're bringing the queen. So what is this place we're about to see? Is that this is the place of the Sitra Achra. This is a place of negativity incarnate. Okay, this palace is a manifestation of negativity, of evil. And then they say, bring the queen, right? And they brought her throne and they sat her next to him. And she was the princess.
She was the person he was looking for.
She was the one that he was looking for. A queen in this place of evil.
So why was she called the princess before?
Because she was the daughter of a king.
The other
She was the daughter of the good king, of the king of all kings, of the Melech of Hashem. So she was called the princess. She was living in royalty in the king's house in purity, as befit her. And then she disappeared. She was taken to this place, the place of evil incarnate, And when this evil king from the other side commands that she come, there's this unbelievable joy and rejoicing. And you could see from this that the princess, or the nekuda of Elokut, the godliness, no matter how far it falls, no matter how into what negativity godliness goes into, right? We have all over the world, people are exploiting other people, and there's wars and there's murders, and then just in the suburbs of Chicago, people are shooting each other over parking spaces. Like, there's such evil. You're like, at least if there's a war over some sort of like high ideal, okay, people are dying, but for a great ideal, then you see there's just so many manifestations of evil and of negativity and of such utter concealment of God's love and God's light and God's presence. But how do those things exist? How does all that negativity have existence? Is only from Hashem, right? If God didn't will it into existence somehow, and the princess wasn't there, right? The revelation of godliness wasn't somehow there, deep down in the hidden under the negativity, it wouldn't exist, right? So, but it doesn't make sense. So anything that has existence, God is giving existence, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing can exist without Hashem, the creator of the world, willing it into existence. Right? Nothing can exist. If it arises in God's ratzon that something should not exist, it doesn't exist. All of creation is only within the context of Hashem's reality. Ein od milvado. There is nothing but God. But God is so hidden. So even in those super hidden places, we see that it only has life because God must be there, but it's so hidden, right? Because ein od milvado. Leis asar panui mimei, it says in the Zohar. There's no place that's devoid of godliness. Not one place, not one cell, not one atom, nothing is devoid of godliness, or else it would not exist. So we have all this negativity. Here she is in the place of negativity, and she's there. But you can see when she comes, it brings so much joy, right? And they're playing music and joy, because really, even in the places of evil and the negativity, it's really the presence of the Shekhinah. If there's any joy, it's from the presence of godliness there. Okay, and we'll see more why.
Could you say what you just said again?
I said that no matter where she is, like you could be in places of negativity. Let's say, for instance, when I was in college and I was just starting to get connected again to Yiddishkeit and my own shvil me'atzad. I found my own little path that awoken in me the relevance and the power of Torah, even though I grew up with a level of knowing and a level of Jewish background. I kind of went searching in the fields and forests, and then it was in college when I got connected to Chassidut or whatever. So I was learning Chassidut, but I was still kind of in the the college scene. But I was learning, all this Chassidut and Rabbi Nachman and Chabad Torahs and all kinds of things. And I would be in places that weren't so holy and weren't so even necessarily kosher, but I was on fire for what I was learning, and so I would talk to all different kinds of people, Jews and non-Jews, about things that I was learning about God, and it brought so much joy, it brought so much, even in these places of negativity, of darkness, of places of concealment of God's light. When you mention a word about a meaning, about depth, about the soul, right? It brings vitality, even in the darkest of places, even in the most difficult of circumstances. She brings song. She brings harmony. When a person's able to, thank you so much. When a person's able to connect with her. So, Vehu Ra'a V'Hikira, and he sees her, and he recognizes her, right? Because here she is. When she was in the palace, she was pure. She was Tehorah, right? She was, and now she's probably all dressed up with makeup and kind of flashy, accoutrements. But no, this is the king's. Yes, she was taken into the palace of this other king as his wife, as the queen.
Okay. With her consent?
Kind of like taken. What's the question?
Consent.
With her consent? No, she was kidnapped. So the Sheni Lamach, who's second to the king, is sitting in the corner, lying down, and he sees her and he recognizes her, right? So that's the aspect of a Jew that's able to see the godliness even in the difficult circumstances, to see the revelation of Hashem even though it's so enclosed. Because in the palace, she looked so different right now than she did when she was in the palace, right? She looks so different. She's all flashed up, dressed up, however they must have dressed her up, in this place of evil. But in essence, she's incorruptible, right? Godliness in essence, it cannot be touched. It is God's pure light and love. But what we do, and what happens in the world is there's klipot, there's all this shmutz, distraction, negativity that gets encrusted onto the godliness, so that the godliness about the Melech becomes so hidden and so disguised. Like, for instance, take celebrity culture. There's something there where people, we make these people into stars because they're able to, because of their acting abilities or whatever it is. But we make them into these idols, right? American Idol. So it's filled with so much money and immorality and all kinds of negativity, right? But in essence, deep down, where people are worshiping, they're worshiping Hashem. They're searching for God, but they just fell into the place of the no good, right? So in that situation, you see, America, for instance, blinded by a yearning and a desire to look up to people, to look up to someone, to say, this is someone who I idolize, this is someone who I can put on my wall, or think about and watch his or her life and be inspired by their lives. But are these lives necessarily to be inspired by? No, it's kind of like the princess, the need for connection, the need for inspiration, the need for looking up to someone, but it's hidden in wrappers of glitz and red carpets and golden globes, right? So that's kind of like the princess who falls into the place of negativity, into the place of such concealment. But the job of a Jew, of a Yid, of the second into the king, is to search for her wherever we might be, or wherever we might be looking, and to recognize her, to recognize that God is in everything, even if it seems so far, even if it seems so annoying or frustrating or painful, to recognize the godliness that's in there, right? Because it says he recognized her, even though she was so disguised. She looked so different than she was before. And then the queen, she peeked out, she kind of looked out and saw one person lying down in the corner, and she recognized him. She recognized him. She stood up from her chair. And she went over to him. She went there. And she touched him. She touches him and she says, "Do you recognize me?" And he says to her, "Hen, yes." And he says to her, "Yes, ani makir otach, I recognize you. You're the king's daughter who was lost. You're the lost princess." Right? She's saying to him, you recognize me even though I've fallen so low. You recognize me even though I'm so far from my source. I'm so far from where I'm supposed to be and who I'm supposed to be. Manifesting, it's like a good friend, that can look at you and say, I see you no matter what you're going through, no matter if you might fall or you might be, no matter what you're going through. I see your tahara. I see your purity that's totally incorruptible. You're a piece of Hashem. Your mom is a piece of Hashem's light. I recognize you. V'sha'alosa. And And of course it's amazing that she recognized him, because of course he looked so different and he was all dirty from searching and years of probably not shaven or anything. She recognizes him. It doesn't say exactly. We hear a little bit later, some time, but many years. It doesn't say. Many years. And then he asks her, how'd you get here? What happened? Ve'eshiva, and she answered him, that my father, these words flew out of his mouth. ... She doesn't say again. She doesn't repeat what he said because it's too painful. And this is the place of the no good. Right? And it's not called the... That's what he had said. May the no good take you away. And at the beginning, right? And that night she disappeared. And she went to her room. In the morning she was gone.
He told her you're no good?
No, he said, may the no good take you away. May the no good, may the reality of negativity, of evil, take you. But he called it the no good.
I wish you could explain that.
Right.
Why did you say that to her? You could explain I call it frustration for lack of better words,
Right.
that Hashem would be angry to the Shekhinah
Right.
with his representation on earth.
Right.
I wish I could understand more what you're saying.
Right. It's a very good question. It's a very deep question. It's a very deep question, and your question touches on the very depth of the question of God's inexpressible concealment in the world. Why is it that Hashem, that created the world, why did God create the world? Why did God create the world? In order to be recognized. In order for us to have a relationship with Him. So why would it be that He would make it so hard? Why would it be that He would make Himself so concealed? That's your question.
It's the pain. It's the pain of I can compare it to the story, let's say, of the child who is playing with his friends, hide and go seek,
Right?
and then nobody is looking for him, and then his father, the Rebbe, says that is what is happening with Hashem.
Exactly.
That he is hiding, and nobody is.
But He hid so well that His children
is
stopped
looking anymore
being
for
you.
him. Is that the analogy?
That's the pain, right? It's the pain. Nachon.
It's a pain.
The pain of the father. The pain of the father that for some reason had to distance his son from him, and it's so painful, but the father had to do it. He absolutely had to. There was no other way, but it causes him a lot of pain. And we see here right now the viceroy says to her, "V'siper shavia mitzta'er me'od," and the second to the king says to her, "Your father is so pained. He's so grieved by the fact that you're lost." Right? So we'd say, Hashem, if you're so grieved, then why don't you just, speak a little louder, shine your light a little bit, like turn it up a little bit, your revelation, like a tiny bit. I'll be able to hear you so much better. I'll be able to live a holy life so much easier if you just turned up the revelation one notch, But Hashem doesn't, even though He wants to. He wants our connection. That's the whole reason why He created the world, was to reveal His love.
What is the message then that the story is giving? Is that the message?
The
that
message.
Hashem is concealing Himself because of the purpose of us finding Him, and then creating a diva vatachtonim, but with a lot of pain, and that Hashem Himself is in pain. Okay,
Right.
so what?
Sure. That's the thing. Exactly. You said it beautifully. That's what the story is saying. He's saying the story is kind of giving us over the reality, which is exactly like you said, and that Hashem is saying to us through this story, what I hear through this story is, search for me, don't give up.
Yeah.
It is my greatest joy when you have little glimpses of me, even in the places that you feel are farthest from me. And that's the whole point of everything.
Yeah.
It's a good story. Like, Rabbi Nachman said, so, in other words, he said God created the world because he loves stories. So it's like each of our stories of us.
Like knowing that I am in one end, Hashem is at the other end, and we are both suffering. And in my pain, He is with me.
Nachon.
And I am like, no, I'm not alone.
Right.
He is with me in my search, and
Beautiful.
He's
Beautiful.
with me.
Right.
He's helping me
Right.
in my search.
It's like Shir Hashirim, Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs. It's the most beautiful, but it's also the most heartbreaking, right when he knocks, she's not there. And then she opens the door and he's already gone, right? It's like heartbreaking, and it's like, how can you even stand it? But it's what it means to be alive. It's so beautiful. It's so raw. That's how Hashem created the world. And then when they finally find each other and they come together in the Yichud, like this moment when she touches him and says, do you recognize me? And he recognizes her and she recognizes him. It's the greatest moment of exaltation.
Who does he represent, Amanda? This Roy?
He represents Kol Echad V'Echad Me'am Yisrael. Every one of Am Yisrael who's on the search for this Shekhinah, for the princess, for the power of their own soul, for the revelation of Hashem in the world. So let's just finish just a few more lines as they get together. So he says to her, your father is so distressed. V'sheu mevaksha kama shanim. Like you're saying, it's, Hashem feels a pain in our pain of not finding him. And he asked her, how can I get you out of here? So he says, how do I get you out of here? And she says, you need to choose a place and stay there for a whole year and yearn to get me out. So maybe we'll pick up here next time because it's like so deep, and she gives some very specific directions. And part of the directions, find one place. It's amazing because he's been searching and going and searching and under rocks and in different caves and searching for her. And then now he goes to this palace, he's searching for her. And now she says, you want to get me out? You need to stay in one place. Right? Don't go out anymore, go in. Go inward and yearn. And the power of yearning we could talk about next time, but yearning is a very big theme in this story. The power of yearning, usually people think about yearning, like the gagah, just wanting so bad to be close to God or for anything else, that it's kind of like, it doesn't do anything. You yearn, and then once you do the action, then you accomplish something. But you could see in this story the power of yearning in of itself, the ratzon, just to want to discover godliness, to chazek et zeh. That it's an active, effective tool in Avodas Hashem is just to cultivate yearning, cultivate desire. So pick up here next time about what does the princess tell her? What is the princess telling him that he has to do? Why her instructions actually in the end don't work for him? Because she gives him very specific instructions, but it kind of fails. And then how ultimately he continues on his search and his adventure looking for the